At the center of Lovecraft's cosmos churns Azathoth, the blind idiot god, the nuclear chaos at the heart of all existence. Azathoth sits at the center of ultimate chaos, attended by amorphous dancers and thin, monotonous piping of flutes that has continued since before stars were born. This entity is described not as a being with thoughts or desires, but as a mindless force, churning and bubbling in the court of chaos. Ancient texts suggest that Azathoth is the source from which all reality emanates, though calling it a creator would imply intention where none exists. The piping that surrounds this entity serves not as music but as a narcotic rhythm, keeping Azathoth in its mindless state. For some texts whisper that should the piping cease and Azathoth truly wake, all of reality might dissolve like a forgotten dream. This is not a god that can be prayed to or bargained with, not an entity that notices humanity's existence. It simply is, has always been, and represents the terrifying truth that at the foundation of existence might lie not divine order, but primordial chaos, blind and without purpose. Nyarlathotep stands apart from other cosmic entities, for while most old ones slumber or exist in alien dimensions, the crawling chaos walks among humanity. Nyarlathotep is called the messenger and soul of the outer gods, appearing in countless forms across human history. Unlike Azathoth's mindless chaos or Cthulhu's dreaming indifference, Nyarlathotep seems to take active interest in humanity, though not from any recognizable emotion. This entity has appeared as a pharaoh in ancient Egypt, as a strange man with electric demonstrations in modern cities, as the haunter of the dark in a Providence church steeple. When Nyarlathotep moves through human spaces, sanity bends in its wake. People who encounter this being describe a tall, dark figure with an unsettling manner, or sometimes as something else entirely, for Nyarlathotep wears forms like masks. The entity seems to delight in revealing truths that shatter human understanding, in showing people the vast indifference of the cosmos. Where other old ones are remote and unreachable, Nyarlathotep comes to you, enters your cities, walks your streets, and leaves madness trailing behind like perfume. Cthulhu lies dreaming in R'lyeh, the corpse city built in measureless eons before humanity drew its first breath. R'lyeh rises and falls with the movements of stars, existing in geometries that human minds cannot properly perceive, built with angles that violate the laws of physics as we understand them. The city appears in scattered accounts, described by those few who glimpsed it during those rare times when it surfaces from the depths. Johansen, the Norwegian sailor who saw R'lyeh rise from the Pacific, spoke of vast greenstone blocks, each the size of a house, fitted together in ways that hurt the eyes to follow. The architecture itself seems wrong, with surfaces that appear both concave and convex simultaneously, with doorways that seem to shift when viewed from different angles. Within the greatest temple of this impossible city sleeps Cthulhu, a being described as having a vaguely anthropoid outline but with an octopus-like head, dragon wings, and a body covered in scales. Yet these descriptions feel inadequate, like trying to describe colors to someone who has never seen. Cthulhu has slept there since the stars were young, sending dreams to sensitive minds across the world. Dreams of a time when the stars will be right, and R'lyeh will rise permanently, and what has slumbered will wake. Yog-Sothoth is called the gate and the key, existing in all times and all places simultaneously. This entity is described as an assemblage of iridescent spheres, constantly shifting and bubbling, Yet somehow these spheres are locked outside the normal cosmos, existing at the threshold of our reality. Yog-Sothoth knows all and sees all, for it exists in every moment of time at once. The entity is invoked in the forbidden text known as the Necronomicon, described as coterminous with all space and time, yet existing beyond the normal dimensions we inhabit. Those who have attempted to call upon Yog-Sothoth in ritual speak of sensing a vast presence pressing against the boundaries of reality, like something enormous waiting just beyond a thin membrane. In the events at Dunwich, Wilbur Whately was said to be the son of Yog-Sothoth, though how such a union could occur defies human understanding of biology or reality. The entity represents a truth difficult for human minds to grasp, that reality as we perceive it is limited, that time and space are more fluid than we believe, and that watching from outside our comfortable dimensions is something that knows everything that has happened and will happen, yet remains utterly indifferent to human existence. Shub-Niggurath is named in whispers as the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young, an entity associated with fertility and life in its most alien forms. This being is called upon in dark rituals in forest clearings, invoked by those seeking forbidden knowledge of life's origins. The entity is described not with the precision given to Cthulhu's physical form, but more as a presence, a force associated with twisted fecundity and reproduction beyond natural law. References in various texts suggest Shub-Niggurath represents a mockery of the Earth Mother concept, life and creation divorced from any warm or nurturing quality, instead presenting life as something that grows, spreads, and mutates without purpose or care. The 1,000 young are said to be entities or creatures spawned by this being, moving through forests and appearing in various forms. Cultists who worship Shub-Niggurath perform ceremonies in wooded places, seeking blessings of fertility or attempting to birth things that should not exist. The entity reminds us that life itself, stripped of the meaning we assign it, is simply biological processes, repeating endlessly, and that creation without purpose or love is perhaps more terrible than destruction. The Great Old Ones are not gods in any sense that would bring comfort. They are not beings that care for their worshippers, that answer prayers, or that judge morality. Instead, they are vast entities whose existence predates human concepts of good and evil, whose motives, if they can be said to have motives, are utterly alien to human understanding. When humans worship these beings, the devotion flows in one direction only. Cthulhu sends dreams not because he cares about his cultists, but as a side effect of his dreaming existence, the way a sleeping person might affect the air around them without intention. These entities exist on timescales that render human lifespans meaningless. Where a human might plan for decades, these beings have slumbered for millions of years and will continue for millions more. They are described in texts as waiting for specific stellar alignments, for moments when the stars are right, suggesting they exist in relationship to cosmic geometries and celestial mechanics that dwarf any earthly concern. To call them evil would be like calling a mountain evil for existing, or blaming the ocean for its indifference. They simply are, vast and patient, and entirely unconcerned with the brief lives of the creatures that crawl on this small planet. The relationship between the Great Old Ones and time itself is not what humans experience. Where we move through time in one direction, locked into the present moment, these entities seem to exist across time in ways that defy understanding. Yog-Sothoth exists in all times simultaneously, witnessing past, present, and future as a single eternal moment. The great race of Yith travels through time by projecting their consciousness into bodies of different species across millions of years. Even Cthulhu's dreaming in Arlaye suggests a state of existence where time passes differently, where eons of sleep are simply a waiting period of no real consequence. This relationship to time makes the Old Ones incomprehensible to human minds. We base our understanding of life on beginnings and endings, on progress and decay, on the urgency created by time's passage. But entities for whom time is negotiable or meaningless operate by completely different principles. They cannot be understood through human psychology because the foundation of human experience, the arrow of time, does not bind them the same way. Dreams in Lovecraft's universe are not simply the mind processing daily events or random neural firings. Dreams are glimpses into other realities, connections to entities and places that exist beyond normal waking consciousness. When the stars began to align in strange configurations in the events described in The Call of Cthulhu, sensitive minds around the world experienced the same dreams. Artists, poets, and those prone to nervous conditions all reported visions of vast stone cities, rising from the ocean, of something stirring in the depths. These were not coincidental nightmares, but genuine psychic connections to R'lyeh as it began to surface. The sculptor Wilcox created bas-reliefs of a creature he couldn't possibly have seen, matching exactly the descriptions of Cthulhu given by cultists on the other side of the world. Dreams, in this cosmology, are dangerous things. They connect us to truths our waking minds are structured to deny, to realities that exist alongside our own. Sleep becomes not an escape from the terrors of waking life, but a gateway to even more profound horrors, to the realization that when we close our eyes, we're vulnerable to influences from dimensions beyond our own. R'lyeh's architecture defies human understanding of space and geometry. The accounts from those who saw the city describe stone blocks fitted together in ways that seem impossible, where perpendicular angles look wrong, where surfaces that should be horizontal appear to slant in directions the mind cannot follow. Walking through R'lyeh, the few survivors reported, felt like moving through a space where gravity operated differently in different areas, where doorways were shaped for beings whose bodies didn't match human proportions, where the very walls seemed to press in on consciousness itself. This is not simply alien architecture, buildings designed by entities with different aesthetic preferences. This is geometry that violates the fundamental laws of Euclidean space, construction that suggests dimensions beyond the three we inhabit. The non-Euclidean nature of R'lyeh serves a purpose beyond unsettling visitors. These impossible angles and perspectives are functional for beings that exist partially outside our normal dimensional space, creating a structure that bridges our reality and whatever alien dimensions the Old Ones truly inhabit. To walk through R'lyeh is to move through space that shouldn't exist, to experience firsthand that the laws we believe govern reality are merely local regulations that do not apply everywhere or to everything. The concept of stellar alignments in Lovecraft's work suggests that the Old One's ability to affect our world waxes and wanes based on the position of celestial bodies. The phrase, "when the stars are right," appears repeatedly in accounts of their cults and in fragments of forbidden texts. This is not astrology in the sense of personality predictions or daily fortunes. Instead, it suggests that the geometry of the cosmos itself affects the membrane between dimensions, that certain alignments of planets and stars create conditions where entities like Cthulhu can exert more influence or even physically manifest more easily. Ancient texts describe civilizations that tracked these alignments over thousands of years. Priest astronomers who watched the skies not for agricultural purposes, but to predict when the barriers would thin, when the old ones would be able to reach through. The stars moving into right positions implies there are also wrong positions, times when the old ones are more firmly locked away from our reality. This offers both comfort and terror. Comfort that they cannot always reach us. Terror that it's only a matter of time before the cosmos wheels into the proper configuration once more, and what has been locked away finds the doors standing open. Long before humanity painted on cave walls or built the first cities, the elder things came to Earth from the stars. They arrived over 1 billion years ago, finding a young planet covered in primordial seas, and in those oceans they built their first settlements. The elder things were not humanoid, not even close to any form familiar to us. They possessed radial symmetry, their bodies arranged in a 5-pointed star pattern, with appendages that served multiple purposes, switching between locomotion, manipulation, and other functions as needed. At the crown of their barrel-shaped bodies sat 5 eyes arranged in a circle, and when they communicated, it was through a complex system of whistling sounds produced by organs along their bodies. These beings brought with them technology and knowledge beyond anything Earth would naturally produce for millions of years. They were able to manipulate life at its most fundamental level, engineering creatures to serve specific purposes, adapting their own bodies to survive in different environments. The elder things are sometimes called the Old Ones in the texts that record their history, though this term also applies to entities like Cthulhu, creating confusion among scholars trying to understand the deep past. These beings built vast cities under the oceans, later expanded to land, and they would dominate Earth for tens of millions of years. The creation of Earth's life is attributed, in one account, to the elder things, though whether this was intentional remains unclear. The record, carved in the Antarctic city, suggests they manipulated the primordial life forms they found on Earth, accelerating evolution, directing it into forms they found useful or interesting. All terrestrial life, in this interpretation, descends from experiments conducted by alien beings for purposes we cannot fully comprehend. This creates a deeply unsettling revision of Earth's history. Where we think of evolution as a natural process driven by random mutation and environmental selection, this account suggests it was guided, manipulated, artificially accelerated by entities studying life as a curiosity, or creating it as raw material. The elder things created multicellular organisms, then more complex forms, eventually producing the ancestor species that would lead to humanity, though we came so much later that they never witnessed our evolution. We are, in this cosmology, not the children of Earth, but the distant descendants of alien experiments, our very DNA carrying traces of manipulation by beings who shaped life to suit their needs. The Shoggoths represent one of the elder things' greatest achievements and their most terrible mistake. These entities were bioengineered to serve as workers and beasts of burden, created to perform the heavy labor of building and maintaining the elder things' vast cities. Shoggoths were essentially protoplasmic masses, able to form any limbs or organs they needed for a task, shape-shifting creatures of incredible strength and durability. They were made to be immortal, reproducing by division, each one containing the cellular knowledge to perform thousands of tasks. For millions of years, the Shoggoths served faithfully, building the Cyclopean cities, carrying out orders whistled to them by their creators. But over those vast stretches of time, something changed. The Shoggoths began to develop sentience, started to think beyond their programmed purposes. The Elder Things recognized this development too late. By the time they understood their workers were becoming conscious beings that resented their bondage, the Shoggoths had already begun to rebel. The cities echoed with a cry that had never been heard before, a mockery of the Elder Thing's own whistling language. Tekeli-li, Tekeli-li. The Shoggoths rose up, and though the Elder Things eventually suppressed the rebellion through technological means, they never fully controlled their creations again. The Shoggoths remained dangerous, barely contained, and in the final days of the Antarctic city, they would prove instrumental in the Elder Thing's extinction. The Antarctic city discovered by the Dyer expedition stood for 50 million years before human eyes witnessed it. The mountains that hid it rose higher than the Himalayas, and within those peaks lay a metropolis of staggering age and scope. The explorers who found it initially mistook what they saw for natural geological formations, so massive were the structures. But as they drew closer, the truth became inescapable. These were buildings constructed by intelligent beings, using architectural principles that suggested advanced mathematics and engineering. The city was built from enormous stone blocks, each fitted perfectly against its neighbor without mortar, using techniques that would make the construction of the Egyptian pyramids look simple by comparison. Carvings covered the walls, depicting the history of the Elder Things from their arrival on Earth through millions of years of civilization. These carvings showed their wars with other alien races, their creation of life, the rise and fall of their empire. The explorers saw their entire history laid out in the stone, a record meant to last forever. And in the deeper chambers, they found the frozen bodies of Elder Things themselves, preserved for eons in the Antarctic ice, and with them, they found evidence of what had destroyed this civilization. The Shoggoths had returned. The conflict between the Elder Things and the spawn of Cthulhu is mentioned in the ancient carvings, though details remain frustratingly vague. The bas-reliefs in the Antarctic city show a time when entities from the stars descended to Earth, beings whose forms differed drastically from the Elder Things. These newcomers, identified in some interpretations as related to Cthulhu, established their own domains, particularly in the Pacific where R'lyeh would eventually sink. The carvings suggest territorial disputes, conflicts over resources or space, though attributing such mundane motivations to cosmic entities may be a fundamental misunderstanding. The Elder Things, despite their advanced technology and millions of years of civilization, found these starspawn to be formidable opponents. The war, if it can be called that, was not won by either side in any conventional sense. Instead, R'lyeh sank beneath the waves through some cataclysm, whether natural or engineered, trapping Cthulhu and his kind in their corpse city. The Elder Things remained dominant on Earth's surface, but their civilization had been shaken. This ancient conflict reminds us that Earth has been contested territory for beings beyond our comprehension, that the ground we walk on has witnessed wars between alien empires while our ancestors were still single-celled organisms drifting in the seas. The decline of the Elder Things came not from a single catastrophe, but from the slow grinding of time and accumulating disasters. Their civilization lasted for hundreds of millions of years, but eventually, the cold began to claim their cities. The advance of ice ages forced them to retreat from their northernmost settlements, concentrating their population in warmer regions and eventually in the Antarctic, which was not yet ice-covered in those ancient times. Their numbers dwindled as the millennia passed. The Shoggoths grew increasingly difficult to control, requiring more and more oversight and force. Other races that had coexisted with or been conquered by the Elder Things began to rise up or simply outlast them. The Mygo established themselves in mountain ranges, competing for resources. The flying polyps that plagued the Great Race were also active on Earth during this period. Slowly, the vast network of cities fell silent, abandoned, or destroyed. The Antarctic settlement became their last refuge, and even there, isolation and decay set in. By the time they created their final historical records, the Elder Things knew they were witnessing their own extinction. The race that had dominated Earth for longer than any other would fade into geological time, leaving behind ruins that would be buried under ice and forgotten until human explorers stumbled upon them by accident. The great race of Yith arrived on Earth roughly 600 million years ago, though they had existed for billions of years before that, fleeing from world to world across the cosmos. The Yithians did not travel through space in ships or by any physical means. Instead, they possessed the ability to project their consciousness through time itself, swapping minds with beings in other eras. When their original bodies on their homeworld were threatened by entities called the Flying Polyps, the Yithians collectively projected themselves forward through time into the bodies of cone-shaped beings on prehistoric Earth. These cone bodies stood roughly 10 feet tall, with a base 4 feet wide, tapering to a point at the top where 4 flexible appendages emerged. 2 of these appendages ended in what served as hands, one in what appeared to be a trumpet-like speaking organ, and the 4th in a sensory apparatus. The Yithians had no bones, their bodies supported by incredibly tough, leathery flesh that proved remarkably durable. They moved by expanding and contracting their base, gliding across surfaces with a motion that observers found deeply unsettling. In these cone bodies, the great race built a civilization on Earth that would last for hundreds of millions of years, dedicated to a single purpose: gathering and preserving knowledge from across all of time. The library city of the great race stood in what would eventually become Australia's interior. The structures they built were massive, constructed from stone and metal alloys, designed to house the greatest collection of knowledge ever assembled. The Yithians, through their ability to project consciousness through time, could exchange minds with beings from any era, past or future. They would take over a body temporarily, study that era intensively, record everything they learned, and then return the consciousness to its original time, usually with the memories of the experience suppressed or fragmented. Their library contained not just the history of Earth, but the history of countless worlds across billions of years. They recorded the fall of civilizations that would not exist for millions of years in Earth's future, documented the rise of species that had existed eons before their own arrival. Every book, every manuscript, every document of importance from every era was copied and stored in their archives. The scale of this collection defies human comprehension. To walk through their library would be to access not just human knowledge, but the accumulated wisdom of thousands of species across geological epochs. Yet the Yithians were not altruistic scholars sharing knowledge freely. They gathered information for their own purposes, studying history to find the optimal path for their own survival, searching the timeline for the moment when they would need to flee once more. The process of mind exchange was traumatic for the beings selected by the Yithians. Humans who underwent this experience like Nathaniel Peaslee, found themselves suddenly inhabiting a cone-shaped body in the distant past, while their own body in their own time was controlled by a Yithian consciousness studying their era. Peaslee lost 5 years of his life this way, his body walking and talking and living in early 20th century Massachusetts, while his mind experienced life 150 million years in the past. He retained fragmented memories of vast reading rooms filled with metal cases containing books and records, of conversations with other captive minds from different eras and different worlds, of being studied and questioned endlessly about his time period. The Yithians were courteous captors, but captors nonetheless. They provided comfortable quarters and allowed their subjects to access portions of their library, but escape was impossible. The minds they captured were too valuable as sources of information and too potentially dangerous if they returned with full knowledge of the Yithians' existence and capabilities. When the exchange ended, most subjects found their memories of the experience suppressed, emerging as fragmented dreams or vague sensations. Only rarely, through hypnosis or intense concentration, could someone like Peaslee begin to piece together what had happened to those missing years. The great race knew their fate with certainty because they could see the future. They knew that eventually the flying polyps would break free from their underground prisons. These entities had been on Earth before the Yithians arrived, horrifying beings of semi-material flesh who had warred with the elder things in ancient times and been imprisoned deep beneath the surface. The Yithians' future knowledge revealed that these prisons would not hold forever, that the polyps would eventually emerge and destroy the cone-bodied civilization. But knowledge of doom is not the same as helplessness. The Yithians had millions of years to prepare, and they spent that time searching the timeline for their next refuge. They identified a species of beetle-like beings that would evolve on Earth in the far future, 50 million years after humanity's extinction. These beings would develop intelligence and would prove suitable hosts for Yithian consciousness. When the time came, when the flying polyps finally broke free and began their rampage through the library city, the great race enacted their final escape. Every Yithian consciousness simultaneously projected itself forward through time into those distant beetle bodies, abandoning the cone forms to destruction. The city fell silent, its vast libraries left to decay over hundreds of millions of years until human archaeologists would stumble upon fragments and feel an inexplicable dread without understanding why. The Necronomicon stands as the most infamous of forbidden texts, a book whose very name inspires dread among those who know its history. The tome was written by Abdul al-Hazred, a poet and scholar described as the Mad Arab, who lived in the Yemen area during the 8th century CE. Al-Hazred traveled extensively through the ancient ruins of the Middle East, exploring places that others avoided, seeking knowledge in locations where civilizations older than Babylon had once stood. He spent 10 years alone in the Rub al-Khali, the great desert called the Empty Quarter, and when he emerged, he had been changed by what he witnessed there. He spoke of encountering entities and places that should not exist, of cities beneath the sands built before humanity's dawn. Al-Hazred wrote his masterwork originally in Arabic, titling it Al-Azif, a word he claimed referred to the nocturnal sounds made by demons or insects, though some scholars interpret it as the sound of the desert wind whistling through ancient ruins. The book was completed around 730 CE, and its contents were considered so dangerous that it was banned and burned wherever authorities discovered it. Yet copies survived, hidden in private collections, passed between scholars willing to risk madness or worse for the knowledge contained within its pages. The history of the Necronomicon traces a path through some of the darkest corners of human scholarship. Abdul al-Hazred himself met an end that the records describe only vaguely. He reportedly was seized by an invisible entity in broad daylight in a Damascus marketplace and devoured while dozens of witnesses watched in horror. After his demise, Al-Azif circulated in secret until 950 CE, when it was translated into Greek by a scholar in Constantinople named Theodorus Philetus, who gave it the title Necronomicon, meaning roughly Book of Dead Names or Laws of the Dead. This Greek version spread somewhat further than the Arabic original, reaching scholars in various parts of the Byzantine Empire before it too was suppressed and ordered destroyed by the Patriarch. The most widely circulated version came in the 13th century, when a Danish scholar, Olaus Wormius, created a Latin translation from the Greek. This Latin text, printed in black letter in Germany during the 15th century, became the version most often referenced in later scholarship. The book appeared in fragmentary form in various languages over the centuries, though complete versions remained extraordinarily rare, held by only a few libraries that recognized the value of preserving even dangerous knowledge. The contents of the Necronomicon, from what fragments and references reveal, deal with the ancient history of Earth before humanity and with rituals for contacting entities that exist beyond normal space and time. The text contains descriptions of the Old Ones, their nature and their domains, along with accounts of the various alien races that have inhabited Earth over the eons. It provides instructions, written in densely coded language, for rituals meant to call upon these entities or to protect oneself from their influence. The book contains the infamous couplet that appears in multiple stories. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange aeons, even death may die. This verse encapsulates a central horror of cosmic terror. That death itself may not be permanent for beings whose existence operates on different principles than earthly life. The Necronomicon speaks of cycles of time measured in geological ages, of stellar configurations that open gateways between dimensions, of places on Earth where the boundaries are thinner and things can slip through from outside. Scholars who have read the complete text report that it fundamentally alters one's perception of reality, that the knowledge it contains cannot be unlearned, and that understanding the truth it presents about humanity's place in the cosmos is a burden that drives many to madness or self-inflicted oblivion. Other forbidden texts exist alongside the Necronomicon, each offering different perspectives on cosmic horror. The Pentateuch manuscripts are said to predate humanity entirely, written by beings that existed on Earth millions of years before humans evolved. These texts are described as being written in a language that requires years of study to begin to comprehend, and even then, translation remains approximate at best. The fragments that have been decoded suggest the manuscripts contain astronomical and mathematical knowledge far beyond human science, along with references to entities and events from Earth's deep past. The Book of Eibon, associated with the ancient land of Hyperborea, contains sorcerous knowledge and descriptions of entities like Satogua. The Unaussprechlichen Kulten, written by Friedrich von Junst, and sometimes called Nameless Cults in English, catalogs various cults throughout history that worshipped cosmic entities, documenting their practices and beliefs. Von Junst himself met an untimely end, found strangled in his locked room with no evidence of how his killer entered or escaped. The Cult des Ghouls, a French text, deals with necromancy and entities that feed on the dead, offering knowledge that bridges human sorcery and cosmic horror. De Vermis Mysteriis, translated as Mysteries of the Worm, was written by Ludwig Prynne, a sorcerer who traveled extensively in the medieval period before being burned at the stake for his practices. The text contains rituals and summonings along with accounts of Prynne's travels to strange places, including suggestions that he visited locations that should not exist according to normal geography. Copies of De Vermis Mysteriis are extraordinarily rare, as the Church made concerted efforts to destroy every known version. The few libraries that possess copies keep them in restricted sections, available only to scholars who can demonstrate legitimate academic need and who sign documents acknowledging the psychological risks of reading such material. These forbidden texts share certain characteristics. They all contain knowledge that challenges the foundations of accepted reality. They all have been suppressed at various points by authorities who recognized their danger, and they all carry a reputation for affecting the mental stability of those who study them too deeply. The texts cross-reference each other, suggesting a web of forbidden knowledge that spans cultures and centuries, as if the truth about humanity's place in the cosmos keeps being discovered, suppressed, and rediscovered by each generation willing to look beyond comfortable illusions. The experience of reading these forbidden texts is described consistently across various accounts. A growing sense of unease, a feeling that the words on the page are revealing truths that human minds were not meant to comprehend. Those who have delved deepest into works like the Necronomicon report that the knowledge fundamentally alters their perception of reality. The night sky becomes a source of anxiety rather than wonder, for they now understand what might be looking back from those vast distances. Ancient ruins take on new significance as evidence of civilizations that worshipped or contacted cosmic entities. Even mundane aspects of life become tinged with the awareness that humanity's entire existence is a brief anomaly in a cosmos governed by forces utterly indifferent to our survival. Some readers put the books aside, choosing willful ignorance over this crushing knowledge. Others become obsessed, unable to stop reading despite the psychological toll. A few, like Wilbur Whately or various cult leaders documented in accounts, use the knowledge actively, attempting the rituals described in the texts, calling out to entities that perhaps should remain undisturbed. The forbidden texts represent a choice: live in comfortable ignorance of humanity's cosmic insignificance, or pursue truth at the cost of peace of mind and possibly sanity itself. Deep beneath the waves of the Atlantic Ocean, in trenches and abyssal plains where sunlight has never penetrated, dwell the deep ones. These beings are amphibious, equally comfortable in the crushing pressures of the ocean depths and in the air of the surface world. An adult deep one stands roughly human height, but appears nothing like human. Their skin is gray-green and covered in scales, with texture similar to a fish but with an unsettling resilience. Their heads are dominated by eyes that never close, bulging and unblinking, adapted to see in the near-total darkness of the ocean depths. Their mouths are wide, filled with multiple rows of sharp teeth, and their hands are webbed with fingers that end in thick claws. Along their necks run gills that pulse rhythmically, extracting oxygen from water or supplementing their lungs in air. Despite their monstrous appearance, deep ones possess intelligence equal to or surpassing humans, though their minds work in ways fundamentally alien to terrestrial thinking. They communicate in a language of croaks, clicking sounds, and whistles that carry well through water, and they have their own civilization beneath the waves. Cities built of stone and coral in architectural styles that predate human culture by millennia. The Deep Ones are, in a sense, immortal. Barring violence or accident, they do not die of old age. A Deep One born in the time of ancient Rome could still be alive today, carrying memories of 2,000 years in its alien mind. They grow throughout their lives, the oldest and largest individuals serving as leaders and priests in their underwater cities. This immortality gives them a perspective on time that differs vastly from human experience. Where a human thinks in terms of years or decades, a Deep One might plan across centuries. Their civilization operates on timescales that make human empires look ephemeral. Treaties signed with surface dwellers mean nothing to beings who will outlive the entire culture they negotiated with. This immortality, however, comes with its own costs. The Deep Ones worship Cthulhu, seeing him as their master and god, and their eternal lives are spent in service to a being that lies dreaming and uncaring in R'lyeh. They perform rituals to hasten his waking, ceremonies that have continued for thousands of years, with the participants remaining the same individuals, growing older and larger, but never dying, forever waiting for the day when the stars are right and their slumbering god rises from the depths. The town of Innsmouth, Massachusetts, became infamous for its connection to the Deep Ones, a relationship that transformed the entire community over generations. The details are recorded in accounts from the 1920s, before government authorities intervened and the town was essentially destroyed. Innsmouth had been a thriving shipping port in the 18th century, but by the early 19th century, it had fallen on hard times. The shipping trade declined, disease swept through the population, and poverty became widespread. Then, in 1846, Captain Obed Marsh returned from one of his South Pacific voyages with a strange tale and stranger gifts. He had encountered an island where the natives worshipped entities they called the Deep Ones, entities that provided fish bounty and gold in exchange for sacrifices and worship. Marsh brought this worship to Innsmouth, establishing what he called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. The old churches were abandoned or converted as the new religion took hold. At first, the town's prosperity seemed to validate Marsh's claims. Fish became abundant in local waters, and gold appeared in the order's coffers. But something else came with this prosperity. The people of Innsmouth began to change. At first, the alterations were subtle enough to dismiss: a certain thickness in facial features, eyes that seemed slightly too large, skin that took on a gray-green pallor that locals attributed to the sea air. But as generations passed, the changes became undeniable. The Marsh family, who had led the town into this pact with the Deep Ones, showed the most pronounced alterations. Their descendants developed the characteristic bulging eyes, the wide mouths, the peculiar shambling gait. By the 1920s, most of Innsmouth's population displayed what became known as the Innsmouth look, features that mark them as something other than entirely human. The town became isolated, shunned by neighboring communities who sensed something deeply wrong even if they couldn't articulate what. Outsiders who visited Innsmouth reported an atmosphere of dread, empty streets during the day, sounds of movement and chanting at night, and the ever-present smell of rotting fish that permeated every building. The truth, as investigators eventually discovered, was that the people of Innsmouth were not merely worshipping the Deep Ones, they were interbreeding with them. The hybridization between humans and Deep Ones follows a pattern that unfolds over decades. A child born of such a union appears normal at birth, perhaps even throughout childhood and adolescence. They live as humans, unaware of their true nature. But as they reach adulthood and move into middle age, the transformation begins. The changes start gradually, skin becoming rougher and slightly discolored, eyes growing larger and more prominent, hair falling away. The transforming individual experiences strange dreams of underwater cities, of swimming through dark waters, of voices calling from the depths. As the metamorphosis progresses, the physical changes accelerate. The person develops gills, their hands and feet become webbed, their body adapts to aquatic life. Eventually, the ocean calls too strongly to resist. The transformed individual hears it constantly, an insistent pull toward the water. They abandon their human life, walking into the sea to descend to Yahantle, the underwater city off the coast where the Deep Ones dwell. There they complete their transformation, living out their immortal existence among their true kin, serving Cthulhu in the deeps, occasionally returning to the surface to perpetuate the cycle with new human partners. Yahantle lies beneath the waters off the Massachusetts coast, a city of stone and coral built in architecture that predates human civilization. The structures follow no style recognizable from surface cultures, with doorways shaped for bodies that move through water, chambers designed for beings who do not need air to breathe. The city is ancient, having stood for thousands of years while human empires rose and fell on land. Within its walls, Deep Ones and their transformed human descendants live in a society oriented entirely around the worship of Cthulhu. Great temples dominate the city center, filled with idols and bas-reliefs depicting their sleeping god. The Deep Ones keep records carved in stone and metal that does not corrode in seawater, maintaining histories that stretch back millennia. They possess technology adapted to underwater use, though whether they developed it themselves or inherited it from older civilizations remains unclear. From Yahantle, the Deep Ones maintain contact with hybrid communities on the surface, arranging unions that produce more hybrid offspring, slowly expanding their influence across coastal regions. They gather gold and artifacts, though for what purpose is not entirely clear. Perhaps as offerings to Cthulhu, perhaps for trade with other non-human entities, or perhaps simply as accumulated wealth from millennia of existence. The entity called Dagon is referenced in the Deep One's worship, though whether Dagon is a specific individual, a type of Deep One, or something else entirely remains unclear from the accounts. A sailor named Johansson encountered what he believed to be Dagon rising from the sea during World War I, describing it as massive beyond belief, shaped like a deep one, but so large that it dwarfed ships, covered in slime and seaweed, with eyes that reflected an intelligence ancient and malevolent. The creature rose from the depths near an uncharted island, suggesting that some Deep Ones grow to tremendous size with age, or that Dagon represents an older species from which the Deep Ones descended, or perhaps that it is another cosmic entity to which the Deep Ones are devoted alongside Cthulhu. The esoteric order of Dagon in Innsmouth took its name from this entity, conducting rituals that invoked both Dagon and Cthulhu, treating them as complementary forces or aspects of the same cosmic truth. The ambiguity surrounding Dagon's exact nature exemplifies the uncertainty that pervades all knowledge of these entities. Accounts conflict, descriptions vary, and the truth remains obscured beneath layers of myth, deliberate obfuscation, and the fundamental difficulty of describing beings whose existence challenges human categories of thought. The fate of Innsmouth came suddenly in the winter of 1928, when federal authorities, acting on information gathered by investigators who had witnessed the town's corruption, launched a coordinated raid. The official reports speak vaguely of arresting smugglers and disturbing illegal operations, but those who participated in the raid told different stories in whispered conversations afterward. They spoke of finding tunnels beneath the town leading to the sea, of discovering chambers where hybrid offspring were kept hidden, of encountering beings that were no longer human trying to flee to the water. The authorities dynamited the reef off Devil Reef, where the deep ones congregated, attempting to seal access to Yahanthli. Depth charges were deployed, explosions echoing through the water. Most of Innsmouth's population was taken into custody, and what happened to them remains classified in government records. Some witnesses claimed submarines were deployed, that the Navy attempted to reach Yahanthli itself, though whether such an expedition succeeded or what it found remains unknown. After the raid, Innsmouth was left largely abandoned, its buildings empty, its streets silent. The town slowly decayed over subsequent decades, becoming a place that travelers avoided, where those few who did visit reported feelings of unease and the persistent sense of being watched from the shadows and from the sea. The architecture of Aurelia, the corpse city where Cthulhu lies dreaming, represents the purest expression of non-Euclidean geometry in Lovecraft's universe. The city exists in a state that defies normal spatial relationships, with angles that appear wrong to human perception, surfaces that seem simultaneously convex and concave, doorways that shift perspective as one approaches them. Johansson's account, one of the few first-hand descriptions from someone who survived seeing Ralia, describes the overwhelming wrongness of the place. Walking through its streets, if they can be called streets, produced vertigo and nausea, as the brain struggled to process spaces that violated fundamental assumptions about how reality works. The massive stone blocks that formed the city's structures were fitted together with impossible precision, creating seams that shouldn't exist between surfaces that don't properly align in three-dimensional space. The largest structure, the temple where Cthulhu sleeps, dwarfed everything around it, a monolith of green stone covered in bas-reliefs depicting scenes from eons before humanity existed. The door to this temple, if the vast opening can be called a door, was shaped and proportioned for something vastly larger than human scale, a reminder that the beings who built this place were operating in dimensions beyond our normal three. The non-Euclidean nature of Arlia's architecture serves a purpose beyond mere alienness. These impossible angles and geometries function as a kind of dimensional bridge, allowing the city to exist partially in our reality and partially in whatever dimension the old ones truly inhabit. When Arlie rises from the ocean, as it did briefly in 1925, it doesn't fully enter our world. Instead, it exists in a liminal state, partly here and partly elsewhere, which explains why its geometry seems wrong to human perception. We're seeing only the portion of the structure that intersects with our three-dimensional reality, while the rest extends into dimensions we cannot perceive. This also explains why Roulier rises and falls with stellar alignments. Certain cosmic configurations strengthen or weaken the barriers between dimensions, allowing the city to surface when conditions align properly. To walk through Aurelia is to experience space as the old ones experience it, to move through a reality where the assumptions that govern our universe do not apply. The human mind, evolved to navigate three-dimensional Euclidean space, simply cannot properly process these geometries, which is why those who see Artelia often emerge with their sanity damaged, unable to reconcile what they witnessed with what they know to be possible. The Witch House in Arkham stands as another example of non-Euclidean architecture, though on a smaller and more insidious scale than Artelia. The house, built in the 17th century, contained angles in its upper rooms that were mathematically impossible, corners where the walls met in ways that violated geometric laws. Walter Gilman, a student of mathematics and physics, rented a room in the house and began to experience the consequences of sleeping in a space where geometry worked differently. The impossible angles acted as gateways, allowing Gilman's consciousness to slip through to other dimensions during his dreams. He found himself traveling through multi-dimensional space, experiencing perspectives and sensations that human senses were never designed to process. In these journeys, he encountered Nyarlathotep and other entities, witnessed cosmic vistas that reduced Earth to insignificance, and learned that the universe contains far more dimensions than the four we perceive. The witch Keziah Mason, who had lived in the house centuries before, had deliberately created these angles, using them as tools for her sorcery, gateways that allowed her to move through space and time in ways that appeared magical but were actually applications of higher dimensional physics. The house demonstrates that non-Euclidean geometry isn't limited to alien structures like Artelia. Humans, given sufficient knowledge and disregard for consequences, can create their own tiers in the fabric of space. Time, as experienced by cosmic entities, bears little resemblance to the linear progression that governs human life. Where we move inexorably from past to future, locked into the present moment, entities like Yog-Sothoth exist in all times simultaneously. Past, present, and future are equally accessible, equally real, creating a form of existence that human minds struggle even to imagine. This relationship to time makes communication with such entities profoundly difficult. How does one converse with a being that experiences your birth, life, and death as a single simultaneous event? The great race of Yith demonstrates another form of temporal manipulation, projecting consciousness backward and forward through time, effectively allowing them to live in any era they choose. Even Cthulhu's dreaming suggests a relationship to time different from ours. The eons he has slept represent no particular burden or frustration. Time passes differently for beings whose existence spans cosmic cycles. They do not age or decay as we understand those processes. Their patience is infinite because time itself is not a constraint they experience as limiting. This alien relationship to time makes the old ones fundamentally unknowable to human psychology. We understand motivation through the lens of time. We act now to achieve results later. We remember the past and anticipate the future. We feel urgency because time is limited. But entities for whom time is negotiable or meaningless cannot be understood through this framework. When Cthulhu waits for the stars to be right, it is not waiting the way a human waits, growing impatient or frustrated. The waiting simply is, a state of existence that could last another 1,000,000 years without causing any particular concern. This makes predicting their actions impossible. We project human motivations and timelines onto beings for whom such concepts are irrelevant. The horror comes not from malevolent intent, but from complete indifference. The old ones do not hate humanity or wish us harm. They simply do not notice us as significant, and when they do act, they do so according to cosmic imperatives that have nothing to do with the brief lives of the creatures temporarily inhabiting this planet. Dreams in Lovecraft's cosmology are not mere neurological phenomena, but genuine experiences of other realities, connections to places and entities that exist beyond waking consciousness. When multiple people across the world began experiencing the same dreams during the events recorded in The Call of Cthulhu, this was not coincidence but psychic connection to Aurelia as it began to surface. The sculptor Wilcox created detailed models of things he could not possibly have seen, driven by dreams that showed him Cthulhu and the Corpse City in precise detail. These dreams originated not from his subconscious, but from actual contact with the sleeping entity, whose dreams radiated outward like ripples from a stone dropped in still water, affecting sensitive minds across vast distances. Artists, poets, those prone to nervous conditions, all proved vulnerable to these dream sendings, suggesting that whatever mechanism allows this connection works most effectively on minds already predisposed to perceive beyond normal boundaries. The dreams were not symbolic or metaphorical, but literal visions, glimpses of Aurelia's geometry, of Cthulhu's slumbering form, of the truth about humanity's cosmic insignificance. The experience of these cosmic dreams leaves lasting marks on those who receive them. Many who dreamed of Aurelia and Cthulhu during that period of 1925 never fully recovered their equilibrium. Artists continued creating works inspired by those visions, unable to escape the images burned into their minds. Some descended into actual madness, unable to reconcile what they had witnessed in dreams with their waking understanding of reality. Others simply withdrew from society, haunted by the knowledge that their dreams had shown them something real, something vast and terrible that still exists whether they think about it or not. The dreams demonstrate that sleep, far from being a refuge from the terrors of waking life, is actually a vulnerability, a state during which our minds become accessible to influences from beyond our normal dimensional boundaries. Every night when we close our eyes, we potentially open ourselves to connections with entities and realities that our waking consciousness is structured to deny. For most people, these connections remain too weak to manifest consciously, producing only vague unease or forgotten nightmares. But for some, for those whose minds are particularly sensitive or who have been touched by proximity to cosmic forces, dreams become the medium through which terrible truths intrude upon consciousness, truths that cannot be unlearned and that color all subsequent waking experience with dread. Human cults devoted to cosmic entities exist, scattered across the globe, hidden in remote areas or disguised as legitimate religious organizations in plain sight. These cults share certain characteristics. They worship beings utterly indifferent to their devotion. They perform rituals meant to hasten or facilitate the return of entities that will not reward them for their service, and they pursue knowledge that inevitably damages or destroys those who acquire it. The psychology of why humans would worship such beings is complex. Some cultists are driven by desperation, people living at society's margins who are promised power or transcendence beyond their current circumstances. Others are scholars who began with legitimate curiosity about ancient religions and crossed the line from studying these beliefs to adopting them. Still others are those who have glimpsed the cosmic truth, who have seen or dreamed of the old ones, and who respond to that revelation not with horror, but with a kind of nihilistic acceptance, reasoning that if humanity is insignificant and doomed, they might as well align themselves with the winning side, however little that alignment might matter in the end. The cult, discovered by Inspector Legrasse in the Louisiana swamps, provides a detailed example of how these organizations function. Hidden deep in the bayous, a mixed group of individuals gathered to perform ceremonies that had been passed down through generations, rituals that matched practices documented in locations as diverse as the Philippines, Australia, and the Middle East. The cultists chanted phrases in a language not native to any of them, words taught by tradition. Feng Lui Magluanaf Cthulhu Relia Wugah Nagel Tagen, which translates roughly to, "In his house at Ralia, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming." The ritual involved dancing around fires, the sacrifice of what the accounts delicately describe as offerings, and a state of ecstatic frenzy that left participants exhausted and sometimes amnesiac regarding the specific details of what they had done. When authorities raided the gathering, they found idols depicting Cthulhu, crude but remarkably consistent with other such idols found in archaeological sites around the world, suggesting that knowledge of this entity's appearance has been spreading through human cultures for millennia, passed through dreams, visions, and ancient texts that predate recorded history. The Starry Wisdom Church in Providence, Rhode Island, operated openly for years before its eventual suppression, presenting itself as a legitimate religious organization while secretly devoted to Nyarlathotep. The church possessed an artifact called the Shining Trapezohedron, a strange angular crystal that allowed viewers to see across vast distances and into other dimensions. Members of the church would gaze into this crystal in darkened rooms, witnessing visions of cosmic scope, though the price for this knowledge was their sanity and, eventually, their lives. The church attracted a particular type of follower: intellectuals dissatisfied with conventional religion, seekers after hidden knowledge, those who sensed that accepted reality was incomplete, but lacked the wisdom to leave certain doors closed. The services held in the church's upper chambers involved gazing into the trapezohedron while chanting invocations to Nyarlathotep, attempting to draw the crawling chaos's attention to their devotion. What they received in return was knowledge that shattered their peace, visions that revealed the true nature of the cosmos, and occasionally, visitations from entities that should not exist. The church was eventually abandoned after too many members disappeared or went mad. The building left empty with the trapezohedron sealed away in its steeple, still exerting its malign influence on the neighborhood around it. The motivations behind worshipping entities like Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep reveal something deeply unsettling about human nature. These are not gods that offer salvation or comfort, not beings that care whether their worshippers thrive or suffer. Yet people devote themselves to them with fervor that matches or exceeds devotion to more benevolent deities. Part of this stems from the seductive quality of forbidden knowledge. The cults offer initiates the promise of seeing beyond the veil, of understanding truths that mainstream society denies or cannot perceive. There is a perverse appeal to knowing that everything people believe about reality is wrong, to being one of the few who understand the terrible truth. Additionally, some cultists are drawn by a nihilistic logic. If humanity is doomed, if the old ones will eventually return and render human civilization meaningless, then perhaps aligning with them offers a form of immortality or significance that cannot be achieved through ordinary human endeavor. The cultists are wrong, of course. The entities they worship will not reward them, will not even acknowledge their service as meaningful. But the human need to find meaning and purpose is so strong that some will project it even onto beings that embody meaninglessness itself. The rituals performed by these cults vary but share certain common elements. Invocations in ancient or alien languages, the use of geometric symbols that mirror the non-Euclidean architecture of places like R'lyeh, ceremonies timed to celestial alignments, and offerings made to entities that neither need nor desire them. The rituals serve primarily to focus the participants' mental energy, creating a kind of psychic beacon that might, under the right cosmic conditions, attract the attention of the entities being invoked. Most of the time, nothing happens. The stars are not right, the entities are too distant or too indifferent, and the ritual ends with nothing more than psychological exhaustion, and perhaps some damage to the participants' mental stability from prolonged concentration on cosmic horrors. But occasionally, when conditions align, something responds. The Sansa accounts are vague about what exactly occurs during successful summoning, perhaps because witnesses rarely survive intact enough to provide coherent descriptions. But the aftermath is always clear. Death, disappearances, and a lingering sense of wrongness in the location where the ritual took place, as if the boundary between dimensions has been permanently weakened. The Mygo, called the fungi from Yugoth, represent another category of non-terrestrial entity, different from the old ones, but no less alien to human understanding. These beings originate from Yuggoth, identified in the accounts as corresponding to the planet Pluto, though whether this is literally true or a misunderstanding remains unclear. The Mygo are described as crustacean-like creatures, roughly 5 feet long, with numerous appendages and membranous wings that allow them to fly through the vacuum of space despite appearing too delicate for such use. Their bodies are pinkish in color and fungoid in texture, giving them their name. Despite their bizarre appearance, the Mygo possess technology far beyond human capability, demonstrating mastery over biological and physical sciences that makes human achievements look primitive. They come to Earth not to conquer or destroy, but to mine, extracting rare elements from remote mountain regions, particularly in Vermont's hills, though their operations extend to other isolated mountain ranges worldwide. They have been visiting Earth for eons, long before humanity evolved, and will likely continue their mining operations long after humanity is extinct. The Mygo's relationship with humanity is pragmatic rather than hostile or worshipful. They recognize humans as intelligent beings and are willing to communicate and even cooperate with individuals who discover their presence. However, their ethics, if they can be said to have ethics, are utterly alien. They see nothing wrong with surgically removing a human brain, placing it in a cylindrical container, and carrying it to Yuggoth, as they did with several individuals documented in Vermont accounts. From the Mygo perspective, this is preservation, allowing the human consciousness to survive and experience things no earthbound human could witness. The fact that the person loses their body becomes entirely dependent on Mygo technology for sensory input, and is essentially a prisoner matters not at all to them. They are not cruel. Cruelty requires understanding that one is causing suffering and choosing to do so anyway. The Mygo simply operate according to values so different from human values that concepts like bodily autonomy or informed consent have no meaning in their framework. They make offerings to humans who cooperate with them: knowledge, technology, the opportunity to travel to Yuggoth and witness its alien landscapes. For some humans, these offerings prove tempting enough to overcome the horror of what cooperation entails. The case of Henry Akeley provides the most detailed account of Mygo interaction with a human. Akeley was a scholar living in rural Vermont who became aware of the Mygo presence through local folklore and eventually through direct observation. He corresponded with them, learned their language, and came to an arrangement that he described in his letters as mutually beneficial. The Maigo shared knowledge with him, descriptions of Yugoth's cities and the entities that dwell there, accounts of cosmic history that predated Earth's formation, and scientific principles that revolutionized his understanding of reality. In exchange, Akeley provided them with assistance in their mining operations, and, apparently, agreed to the ultimate exchange, allowing them to remove his brain and transport it to Yuggoth so that he could experience the wonders of their world firsthand. When investigators later visited Akeley's farmhouse, they found evidence of his correspondence, recorded phonograph cylinders containing the Maigo's buzzing speech, and eventually, in the darkened study, what appeared to be Akeley himself sitting in a chair. Only upon closer inspection did the truth become apparent. This was merely Akeley's face and hands, preserved and attached to some kind of apparatus, with a Migo creature hidden in the chair using these human components to simulate Akeley's presence. What became of Akeley's consciousness? Whether it truly travels the alien landscapes of Yuggoth or was simply destroyed remains unknown. The technology employed by the Maigo demonstrates capabilities that seem like magic to human observers, but are presented as applications of sciences we simply don't yet understand. Their brain cylinders maintain human consciousness in a state that appears to be fully functional, with the brain remaining aware and able to communicate through devices attached to the cylinder. These devices can provide sensory input, allowing the preserved brain to see and hear, though the experiences are filtered through alien technology and may not correspond exactly to human sensory perception. The Maigo can fly through space without apparent ships, their wings somehow enabling them to traverse interstellar distances despite looking like they should barely support flight in Earth's atmosphere. They can become invisible or nearly so, explaining why humans rarely see them despite their presence in populated areas. They manipulate matter at a fundamental level, creating the organic compounds that form their technology and the surgical tools that allow them to extract brains without killing the consciousness within. Most disturbing is their apparent ability to create biological constructs that mimic human appearance, as demonstrated by the false Akeley, suggesting they can preserve and manipulate human tissue in ways that blur the line between life and death, between human and tool. Yuggoth itself, as described in the accounts, is a world of black rivers and fungoid forests, of cities built from materials that shift and flow like living tissue, of entities that migrate across its surface according to patterns incomprehensible to human observation. The planet exists at the edge of the solar system, in eternal twilight, with temperatures that should make life impossible, yet teeming with it nonetheless. The Migo are not the only inhabitants. Other beings dwell there, entities whose nature is even more alien than the fungi themselves. Humans whose consciousness has been transported to Yuggoth in brain cylinders report seeing things for which English has no adequate vocabulary, experiencing sensations that don't correspond to any human sense, and witnessing cosmic phenomena that earthbound humans can only glimpse through powerful telescopes, if at all. The accounts suggest Yuggoth serves as a kind of way station, a place from which one can access other dimensions and distant parts of the cosmos. The Maigo use it as a base of operations for their mining expeditions across multiple worlds, a hub in a network of trade and travel that spans galaxies. For a human consciousness trapped in a cylinder on Yuggoth, the experience would be overwhelming, divorced from all physical sensation, unable to move or act independently, witnessing alien wonders while knowing you can never return to Earth. never inhabit a human body again, existing as pure consciousness in a container, entirely at the mercy of entities whose motives remain forever opaque. The question of what the MIGO actually want from Earth goes beyond simple resource extraction. The elements they mine, while rare, surely exist on other worlds less populated than Earth, locations where their operations would not risk exposure. Yet they continue to operate on this planet, have done so for millions of years, suggesting Earth holds some particular significance in their calculations. Some accounts hint that the MIGO serve other entities, that they are intermediaries or servants to beings even more powerful than themselves. References appear in certain texts to the MIGO performing tasks for Nyarlathotep or other cosmic entities, suggesting a hierarchy in which the fungi from Yuggoth, for all their advanced technology, are merely agents carrying out purposes they may not fully understand themselves. The elements they mine might be components in some vast cosmic machinery, or offerings to entities that consume matter and energy in ways we cannot comprehend. Alternatively, the MIGO might be scientists in their own right, studying Earth and its life forms as part of research spanning geological ages, with their mining operations serving as cover or merely secondary to their true purpose of long-term observation. The truth remains hidden behind language barriers and conceptual frameworks so different from human thinking that even when the MIGO attempt to explain their purposes, the translation fails to convey meaning humans can properly grasp. The philosophical implications of entities like the MIGO cut deeply into human assumptions about consciousness and identity. If a brain can be removed from a body and continue to function, to think and perceive and experience, what does that say about the nature of self? The individuals whose brains were preserved in cylinders continue to be aware, continue to have thoughts and reactions. Yet are they still the same person they were when embodied? They have no autonomy, no ability to act on the world, no physical sensations except what the MIGO's devices provide. They exist as pure consciousness, which some philosophical traditions might see as achieving a kind of enlightenment, shedding the limitations of flesh. But the accounts suggest the experience is more horrifying than transcendent, a state of helpless awareness, perceiving without ability to interact, thinking without ability to act on those thoughts, essentially a prisoner in one's own mind for however long the MIGO choose to maintain the cylinder's function. This raises the uncomfortable question of whether consciousness without agency is truly consciousness at all, or something else, something worse than death because awareness continues, but all that makes life meaningful has been stripped away. The accumulation of forbidden knowledge transforms those who pursue it, not metaphorically, but in tangible ways that affect their perception and mental state. Scholars who study the Necronomicon too deeply report that the world begins to look different, that they see patterns and connections invisible to others, that ordinary objects and places take on sinister significance as they recognize them as evidence of cosmic truths that most people never notice. This is not madness in the clinical sense, not delusion or hallucination, but rather a fundamental shift in perception that results from understanding things the human mind evolved specifically to ignore. Our ancestors survived not by comprehending the true nature of the cosmos, but by focusing on immediate practical concerns, finding food, avoiding predators, forming social bonds. The cognitive structures that allowed this survival actively suppress awareness of humanity's cosmic insignificance, of the vast scales of time and space in which we are less than momentary, of the entities that exist in dimensions beyond our perception, Forbidden knowledge breaks down these protective suppressions, forcing awareness of truths that make ordinary human life difficult or impossible to continue. The progression is documented across multiple accounts. First comes fascination, the thrill of discovering knowledge that others don't possess. The intellectual satisfaction of solving mysteries that have persisted for centuries. Then comes unease, as the implications of the knowledge begin to sink in, as the scholar realizes that what they've learned cannot be unlearned, and that it casts a shadow over everything they previously believed. Next comes the attempt to retreat, to put the books aside, to return to normal life. But the knowledge persists, intruding into every quiet moment, making sleep difficult as dreams become gateways to cosmic awareness. Finally comes the choice. Embrace the knowledge and all it entails, potentially leading to the decision to join a cult or attempt rituals oneself, or reject it at the cost of suppressing part of one's own consciousness, living in deliberate ignorance while knowing that ignorance is a comfortable lie. Some choose a third path, the one that appears in various accounts as a sudden death ruled as self-inflicted. The choice to end consciousness entirely, rather than continue carrying the unbearable weight of cosmic truth. The mental deterioration attributed to cosmic knowledge differs fundamentally from conventional psychological conditions. Where mental illness typically involves breaks from reality, delusions that others can identify as inconsistent with observable facts, cosmic horror involves perceiving reality more accurately than others, seeing truths that most minds actively filter out. The person who has read the Necronomicon thoroughly and understood its contents is not hallucinating when they see the stars as hostile, when they recognize ancient ruins as evidence of pre-human civilizations, when they sense presences in certain locations that others dismiss as imagination. They are simply no longer protected by the comforting illusions that make ordinary human life psychologically sustainable. Society labels such individuals as mad because their perception no longer aligns with consensus reality. But the accounts suggest that in many cases, these people have not lost touch with reality, but rather have come into too close contact with aspects of reality that human psychology is structured to deny. The tragedy is that there is no return from this state, no way to unknow what has been learned, no therapy or treatment that can restore the comfortable ignorance in which most people live. Pickman's model provides a case study in how artistic vision can serve as a conduit for cosmic truth. Richard Upton. Pickman was a painter whose work depicted ghouls, degenerate subterranean creatures that appeared in his canvases with disturbing realism. His paintings showed these beings in underground tunnels, in ancient graveyards, engaged in activities that other artists could only render as Gothic fantasy, but that Pickman painted with documentary precision. Critics and fellow artists were unsettled by his work, by the conviction that these were not imagined monsters, but things Pickman had actually seen. They were correct. Pickman had discovered the ghoul tunnels beneath Boston, had observed these creatures in their natural habitat, and had formed some kind of relationship with them. His paintings were not created from imagination but from observation, sketches made in the tunnels themselves, capturing the ghouls as they truly appeared. Eventually, Pickman disappeared, last seen descending into the tunnels, and later evidence suggested he did not die there but rather joined the ghouls, undergoing some transformation that allowed him to exist among them. His case demonstrates that artistic sensitivity, the ability to perceive and render truth that others miss, can become a liability when that truth involves cosmic horrors. The artist's gift for seeing becomes a curse when what they see cannot be dismissed or ignored. The music of Eric Zahn presents another form of knowledge through artistic expression. Zahn was a mute violinist who lived in a garret room in a strange house in Paris, a location that seemed to shift in physical space, difficult to relocate once one left it. Every night, Zahn would play his viol, creating music that began as conventional melodies, but gradually transformed into sounds no earthly instrument should produce. Wild and frenzied compositions that seemed to keep something at bay. The narrator, who rented a room below Zahn's, witnessed one night when the old musician's playing became desperate. When the window in his room revealed not the Paris skyline, but an abyss of darkness filled with presence and movement. Entities beyond the window pressing against some invisible barrier that only Zahn's music maintained. Zahn played until he collapsed and died, and with his death, whatever protection his music provided vanished. The manuscript of his compositions, which might have revealed the nature of what he had discovered and kept at bay through nightly performance, was swept from the window into the abyss. Zahn's case suggests that some individuals discover cosmic truths not through scholarly study but through artistic exploration, and that art itself can serve as both revelation and defense, a way of interacting with cosmic forces through pattern and sound and form, rather than through ritual or invocation. The color out of space represents a type of cosmic horror, distinct from entities like Cthulhu or the Mygo, something that cannot be categorized as a being at all, but rather as a force or phenomenon from beyond Earth's dimensional boundaries. In 1882, a meteorite fell on the Gardner farm in the western Massachusetts hills, landing in a field and slowly melting into the soil. The meteorite contained something that was not matter as humans understand it, something described only as a color, though witnesses struggled to articulate what color it actually was, saying it was unlike any color in the normal spectrum, something the eye could perceive, but the brain could not properly process. This color began to affect everything around the impact site. Plants grew to enormous size but wrong in texture and taste, becoming inedible despite their abundance. The Gardner family, initially pleased by the strange fertility of their fields, began to notice disturbing changes. The water from their well tasted wrong. Animals behaved strangely and developed mutations. The family members themselves fell ill with symptoms that physicians could not diagnose, ailments that seemed to drain life force itself rather than attacking any specific organ system. The Gardner family's deterioration followed a pattern of increasing wrongness. The mother was first to show severe symptoms, her personality changing, her behavior becoming erratic, her physical health declining in ways that suggested wasting disease but with qualities that didn't match any known condition. The sons began to change, their minds fragmenting, their bodies developing peculiarities that medical examination could not explain. The father watched his family fall apart, desperately seeking help from doctors who could offer no treatment because they could not understand what they were treating. The color itself seemed to feed on life, draining vitality from everything in the area. Trees turned gray and brittle, their wood losing all strength. Grass and crops grew rapidly but became ashen and tasteless. Even the stones seemed to take on a wrong quality, crumbling more easily than natural weathering would explain. At night, the area around the farm glowed with that indescribable color, a light that hurt to look at, that seemed to pulse with a rhythm that suggested it was somehow alive or purposeful, despite having no apparent biological structure. Eventually, the color consumed everything in the immediate vicinity, leaving the land a gray, desolate waste where nothing would grow. A blasted heath that persisted decades after the event, still barren, still wrong, still faintly glowing on certain nights. The true nature of the color out of space remains unknown because it may be fundamentally unknowable. The entity, if it can be called an entity, does not fit into any category of life or matter that human science recognizes. It was not biological in any traditional sense, having no cells, no DNA, no reproductive system. Yet it seemed to grow and spread, to consume energy and transform its environment. It was not simply radiation or any known form of energy, though it exhibited some qualities similar to both. The color appeared to be something from outside our dimensional framework, something that entered our universe through the meteorite and could not properly exist here but nonetheless did exist, warping reality around itself to accommodate its impossible presence. This represents perhaps the purest form of cosmic horror, not a monster that can be fought, not an entity that can be understood or communicated with, but a phenomenon so alien to our reality that even describing it requires inventing new vocabulary, something that violates the fundamental laws we believe govern existence. The aftermath of the color's visitation lasted generations. The Gardner farm was abandoned, the house left standing but avoided by all locals who knew its history. The area became known as the Blasted Heath, a gray scar in the landscape where the forest refused to grow back, where water would not stay fresh, where animals would not venture. Surveyors who visited the area decades later reported feeling profound unease, experiencing headaches and nausea without apparent cause, seeing faint luminescence at dusk that their instruments could not measure. The accounts suggest that the color did not fully leave when the initial event concluded, that some trace of it remained soaked into the soil and stone, continuing to exert its alien influence on a smaller scale, perhaps waiting for conditions that might allow it to grow strong again. This lingering contamination raises the horrifying possibility that Earth has been permanently altered, that the boundary between our dimension and whatever realm the color originates from has been weakened, creating a thin place where reality operates according to different rules. The question of whether the color had intelligence or purpose remains unanswered. Did it deliberately seek out Earth, or did it arrive by accident, a fragment of something vaster that happened to intersect with our planet's trajectory? Did it feed on life intentionally, or was the consumption of vitality merely a side effect of its existence, like how a fire consumes oxygen without choosing to do so? The accounts lean toward the latter interpretation, suggesting the color was more force than being, more process than creature, something that simply existed according to its own nature and transformed everything it encountered, not from malice, but from simple incompatibility. This interpretation is more unsettling than imagining it as a hostile entity, because it removes any possibility of understanding or negotiation. You cannot reason with the force of nature, cannot appeal to the mercy of something that has no awareness of causing harm. The color demonstrates that the universe contains phenomena so alien that the question of intelligence becomes meaningless, things that exist beyond the categories we use to make sense of reality. The incomprehensibility at the heart of cosmic horror serves a specific purpose in Lovecraft's philosophy. The Old Ones, the My-Go, the color, and other entities are not meant to be fully understood by readers any more than they can be understood by the characters who encounter them. The horror comes precisely from this incomprehensibility, from the realization that the universe contains things that human minds cannot properly grasp, that our categories and concepts are inadequate tools for comprehending reality in its totality. This stands in stark contrast to most horror, where monsters can be understood, where evil has motivations even if twisted, where knowledge provides power. In cosmic horror, knowledge provides only despair, because the more you understand about entities like Cthulhu or phenomena like the color, the more you realize how utterly beyond human comprehension they are, how insignificant humanity is in comparison, how little our existence matters in the cosmic scale. This realization of insignificance forms the core of cosmic horror's philosophy. Humans naturally place themselves at the center of their understanding of the universe, seeing human concerns as paramount, human morality as universal, human existence as meaningful in some cosmic sense. Religion reinforces this by presenting universes where humanity matters to gods or to some cosmic order. Even secular philosophies often assume that human values like progress, knowledge, and meaning have some kind of objective reality. Cosmic horror strips away these comforting assumptions. In a universe populated by the Old Ones, humanity is not central but peripheral, not meaningful but barely noticeable, not the culmination of evolution but an accidental byproduct of alien experiments millions of years ago. Our gods are indifferent entities that slumber in alien geometries. Our magic is the misunderstood application of dimensional physics by beings vastly more advanced than us. Our deepest knowledge is fragmentary at best and actively harmful to psychological health. We exist briefly in a cosmos that predated us by billions of years and will continue billions of years after we're extinct, surrounded by entities and forces that dwarf us in scale and power, and not one of them cares whether we thrive or perish. Yet this philosophy, bleak as it is, carries within it a kind of liberation. If humanity is insignificant in cosmic terms, then human failures and limitations are equally insignificant. The pressures that weigh on individual human lives, the concerns that seem overwhelming, the moral complexities that paralyze decision-making, all of these shrink when viewed against the scale of cosmic time and space. There is freedom in accepting that we are small, that we do not need to bear the weight of cosmic significance, that we can live our brief lives by our own standards without needing to justify ourselves to an indifferent universe. The horror and the liberation are two sides of the same realization. We are alone in a vast cosmos, unprotected by benevolent deities, insignificant to cosmic forces, and therefore free to create whatever meaning and value we choose for ourselves without needing cosmic validation. The forbidden texts, the cults, the encounters with cosmic entities all serve as variations on a single theme: the danger and inevitability of seeking truth beyond human limits. Every scholar who opened the Necronomicon made a choice to prioritize knowledge over peace of mind. Every cultist who worshipped Cthulhu chose cosmic truth over comfortable illusion. Every investigator who pursued strange events to their source chose understanding over ignorance. Some of these choices were deliberate, eyes-open decisions to sacrifice psychological comfort for knowledge. Others were incremental, small steps into forbidden territory that accumulated into a journey from which no return was possible. But all of them represent a fundamentally human impulse: the drive to know, to understand, to push beyond current limitations even when doing so carries terrible costs. This impulse has driven human progress throughout history, leading to scientific advancement, philosophical insight, artistic achievement. But cosmic horror suggests there are limits to what humans can beneficially know. Truths that our minds are not structured to accommodate. Knowledge that damages rather than enlightens. The survivors of cosmic encounters share certain characteristics. They are profoundly changed, unable to return to their previous lives and worldviews. They see the ordinary world as a thin facade over vast and terrible realities. They cannot enjoy simple pleasures without awareness of cosmic horror lurking behind them. Many withdraw from society, unable to relate to people who still live in comfortable ignorance. Some try to warn others, writing accounts or trying to destroy forbidden texts, though these efforts rarely succeed because the same human curiosity that led them to forbidden knowledge drives others to seek it despite warnings. A few become scholars of the forbidden themselves, attempting to map and understand cosmic horror even knowing the psychological cost. Perhaps reasoning that if knowledge is inevitable, it should at least be documented and studied. And some, unable to bear the weight of what they know, choose to end their awareness entirely, finding that preferable to continuing life with full knowledge of humanity's place in the cosmos. None of them regret having learned what they learned, even as they suffer the consequences, because knowing the truth, however terrible, seems preferable to living in ignorance of it. The accounts themselves, the stories told by survivors and investigators, serve a function within this cosmology. They are warnings, yes, but they are also invitations. Every forbidden text began as someone's account of forbidden knowledge. The Necronomicon is Abdul al-Hazred's record of what he discovered in the desert. The various testimonies about Innsmouth, about the Antarctic expedition, about encounters with the Mygo, all become texts themselves, documents that other seekers will find and study, perpetuating the cycle. Reading these accounts is itself a form of forbidden knowledge, a step toward the kind of cosmic awareness that damaged those who had direct encounters. The reader who finishes learning about Cthulhu and Relier, about the elder things and their history, about the great race and time travel, about the color and dimensional incursion, that reader has been changed by the knowledge, has had their comfortable worldview challenged, has glimpsed the possibility that reality is far stranger and more terrible than ordinary life suggests. The horror propagates through the telling, each account reaching new minds, each new mind potentially becoming another seeker after deeper truths, another victim of cosmic awareness. Yet there is beauty in this horror, a terrible sublime quality to the vision of vast cosmos populated by ancient entities, to the deep history of Earth before humanity, to the strange geometries and alien dimensions that surround our limited three-dimensional existence. The accounts describe Ralia's architecture with dread, but also with awe at its impossible magnificence. They speak of Yog Sothoth existing in all times with horror, but also wonder at the implications for the nature of time. They recount the elder thing's millions of years of civilization with unease, but also recognition of achievements that dwarf human accomplishment. The color out of space is terrible, but also described as beautiful in its wrongness. A color no human has seen before. An experience unique despite its deadly consequences. This sublimity, this terrible beauty, explains a part of why seekers pursue forbidden knowledge despite warnings. They are drawn not just by curiosity, but by the glimpse of something greater than human experience normally encompasses, something that transcends mundane existence even as it threatens sanity. The cosmos of cosmic horror is not empty, but full, teeming with entities and civilizations and forces that exist in dimensions beyond human perception, that have persisted for eons and will continue for eons more, utterly indifferent to the brief spark of human consciousness. Earth is not the center of anything but merely one planet among countless billions, notable only for having hosted multiple alien civilizations over its geological history, and currently hosting humanity's temporary presence. The entities that notice Earth do so not because humanity matters, but because we happen to exist in a location they occasionally interact with for their own incomprehensible purposes. We are not hated, not targeted, not even particularly interesting except to those few entities that study lesser species out of scientific curiosity. This indifference is the final horror, the ultimate undermining of human ego and human assumptions about our significance. We want to matter, want our existence to have cosmic meaning, want to believe that someone or something cares about our fate. Cosmic horror answers with silence, with vast entities that dream without noticing our existence, with alien scientists that study us as we study bacteria, with forces that consume vitality without awareness that they are causing death. We are alone in a crowded cosmos, surrounded by presences that do not see us as significant enough to acknowledge. In the deep places, in the spaces between stars, in dimensions folded against our own, cosmic entities continue their ancient existence. Cthulhu dreams in Erlaye, waiting with infinite patience for stellar configurations that will allow his city to rise permanently. Yog-Sothoth watches all of time simultaneously from outside our dimensional boundaries. Azathoth churns mindlessly at the center of chaos while flutes play their monotonous rhythm. Nyarlathotep walks among humanity, wearing whatever face suits its current purpose. The Mygo continue their mining operations in mountain ranges across Earth, and likely across thousands of other worlds. The Great Race inhabits its beetle bodies in Earth's far future, cataloging knowledge from across billions of years. The Deep Ones worship in Yhanthle, sending dreams to their hybrid descendants on shore. The Shoggoths lurk in the ruins of Antarctic cities, still chanting their mockery of their creator's language. The color waits in the blasted heath, a stain on reality that may never fully fade. And in libraries scattered across the world, in private collections and hidden archives, the Necronomicon and other forbidden texts wait for curious eyes to open them, to read the words that Abdul al-Hazred wrote after his 10 years in the desert, to learn the truths that cannot be unlearned, to begin the journey into cosmic awareness that has claimed so many before. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, moving toward alignments that have significance beyond human astronomy. Time passes, indifferent to human marking of days and years, moving in cycles that span eons. And somewhere, in moments between sleeping and waking, sensitive minds still receive dreams from Erlaye, still glimpse impossible geometries, still sense the vast indifferent presences that share this universe with humanity's brief consciousness. The horror continues, patient and eternal, waiting in the dark places, in the angles that shouldn't exist, in the spaces between dimensions, always there whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we study it or ignore it, whether we worship it or flee from it. It simply is, has always been, and will continue long after humanity is forgotten. A few fossilized bones in rock strata that some future species might puzzle over briefly before moving on to concerns that matter to them, as we once puzzled over the remains of the elder things without truly understanding what we had found or what it meant for our place in the cosmos that extends infinitely in all directions, filled with wonders and horrors beyond imagining, beneath stars that care nothing for the dreams of the creatures that briefly crawl across the surfaces of cooling rocks circling them.